this particular piece really focuses on how surveillance tools are being used to basically create these registries, how they're using different online surveillance tools, everything from facial recognition software to databases to the reporting of sensitive health information that Ron DeSantis in particular is now requiring. So, I'm of the persuasion that digital rights are human rights. And here's something that really supports that sentiment. I mean, here you have these surveillance tools that are not used for good ever. And here they are being used for something I think particularly despicable, where they're literally making a registry of a group of people, which is very frightening. Just straight up
very accurate, image from the article. I think it really speaks to just this obsession with this particular topic. And, I pointed out a while back, I don't remember who the guest was on the podcast at the time, but I pointed out the hypocrisy of what the political right is doing, particularly somebody like Matt Walsh, who does what he does for a career. It's a very lucrative angle that he's been playing for the past, 2 years plus. And so by doing so, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast and was asked specifically, how many kids are trying to transition in this country right now. And he threw a number out there. What do you remember the exact number? I think it was, what did he say, like 4 or 5 million or something like that?
It was millions.
Yeah, he said millions. And it turns out it's about 5,000 to 6,000 in the entire country. And so by doing that, you create a level of hysteria that's just not there, that just doesn't exist. And by doing that...
Didn't Bill Maher do something similar? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You mean with like hype, with wrong statistics and stuff? I just wanted to say something before I forget, like along the lines of this registry, and I don't know if you were also familiar with in Tennessee that the attorney general requested, demanded, and somehow was able to procure medical records from Vanderbilt University Hospital regarding everybody that had received trans, gender affirming care. Mm-hmm. And that to me, that's a registry. Because if you're like, and a massive HIPAA violation, I might add, but I'm sorry, continue.
The thing from Bill Maher I'm referring to, I don't think it was like a specific statistic, but he said something along like he tried to make this joke about how, there's more transgender people now because we're talking about it, like basically equating being transgender to a fad, which is so disgusting and just so completely disrespectful to a group of people, and also just nonsense. I mean, it's like, if more people feel like they're okay to be open about who they are, first of all, that's a good thing. Second of all, that doesn't mean it's a trend, Bill. Sheesh.
Well, that's the whole mentality. And this is something I have yet to have somebody with any real credibility explain to me, this concept of grooming. Because the only groomer that I know is the one that cleans the dog. So, like, I'm not quite sure what they mean by groomers, but I don't, like, that's not a thing that happens. Look, where it has to, no, there's groomers in terms of pedophiles. That's true. But in terms of people creating, like, if a teacher is gay or trans, they're not grooming your kids to be gay or trans. That's absurd.
I would also venture that depending on the specific circumstance, there is validity. This movie that just came out, Chimes of Freedom, or whatever the name is, it's the Jim Caviezel film about child trafficking. And it is blowing up. And I do think that there is validity to that specific issue. But here's the problem with the conservative right, is that if you're going to talk about grooming, you're going to talk about, abuse of children, things like that. If you are not pointing the finger at the church, then I don't want to hear what you have to say. Because it's the most obvious place where abuse takes place, and they have been protected forever. If you were going after the church as hard as you're going after these supposed, drag show, you want to call, parental enablers and stuff like that, okay, you're still way out in left field but you're not even being honest about the situation. You're making it a political agenda. How people don't see this, I don't know what you're looking at. Because to me, that is one of the biggest omissions of all of this. The child abuse that goes on within religious institutions.
Or in Hollywood, could we talk about that? Like talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah, but you're never going to see that coming from this angle, because for them, like the Matt Walshes of the world, this is about making money first and foremost. If people can't see that, I don't know what they're looking at.
Well, it's like I say this in my act. I got to be totally fair here. There was a story that broke about a year ago where in my neighborhood where I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, there were over 20 drag performers that were doing some inappropriate things with children. And one of them was actually at my grade school. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Did I say drag performer? I meant Catholic priests. I'm sorry. Over 20 Catholic priests who were in Western Pennsylvania. And one of them was at my grade school when I was there. So,
and it's 10 times worse because, the archdiocese in all of the major cities, whether it's Pittsburgh, I mean, if any of you have not seen the movie Spotlight, with Michael Keaton and Mark Ruffalo, highly recommend. That was about the Boston Archdiocese and what they were doing. It's not like there's this epidemic which exists of priests abusing children and dealing with them appropriately. We're not only going to not prosecute these priests, we're going to keep them in the parish and just pass them off to another one somewhere else in the country, and completely hide the records of what was going on. And the fact that that is not at the forefront of the discussion of child abuse in this country, I would be right there with that agenda if they were willing to tackle this head on. But they're not going to do it because therein lies where a lot of their funding probably comes from, their support comes from online. There is no denying it. If you are going to go after a particular topic, there cannot be any guardrails to, well, if we go in this direction, we might piss off these people. No, either you have a real agenda that you're fighting for, or you're just trying to line your own pockets. And as long as, us respectively have been in the political arena, people are just looking for the next grift that's going to allow them to continue whatever the hell this is. That's, and again, innocent children are being subjugated to this BS. And all the while, the issue at bar is not being dealt with. We're distracted constantly from the fact that we don't have health care, which, let's be honest, if we did, we would not hear anywhere near these amount of stories when it comes to, whether kids are getting proper mental health coverage, whether they're getting proper physical health needs and things of that nature. It's always trying to deal with some ancillary problem that isn't dealing with the core problem. And for those that, get marred down in this, I don't have time for it. I wish more people could just keep their eye on the prize because they're using trans kids as a distraction as far as I can see.
Oh, absolutely, man. Well, and also, you're talking about what our kids are really going through today. I mean, how about look at school shootings? Look at these shooter drills that are freaking traumatic for kids. And it's just normal now. It's just normal. They go through these shooter drills. You talk to people with kids. They're like, yeah, my kid had nightmares for like months after these shooter drills. So we're exposing them to this stuff because it's part of our society now. Meanwhile, we're not doing anything to make it better. And we're worried about whether or not they see the penis on the David statue. We're worried about a person in drag reading them a story. Like, what the hell? I mean, it's just so bizarre. And it's like, you couldn't pitch what's going on right now as a dystopian movie because they'd say it's too far-fetched. No one would buy this. There's no way a society would go this far off the deep end. But we're freaking there. And with all due respect, Florida, y'all are leading the way. Holy shit. What's in the water in your state? Yeah. We got our problems in California, but my God.
We've been taken hostage by a small red cabal that in Tallahassee, but that is not representative of our state. It really isn't. And we do tend to be a populist state and fairly middle of the road. and clearly did not have the eye on the ball for a long enough time that this cabal was able to infiltrate and take over. But they do not speak for the majority of people in the state. They just don't.
Oh, I believe you, because I love performing in Florida. It's one of my favorite places to play. I love visiting y'all's state. Gainesville is one of my favorite college towns. I've had great times in Miami, Orlando. Even I love the Panhandle. I mean, I really do. We had a lot of lefties show up to our shows in the Panhandle. But yeah, wow. Rick Scott told me I'm not welcome. It's just
but here's the thing. I'm very curious if Rick Scott could define what a communist, a socialist, or a Marxist was. And the fact that in his first sentence, he somehow, brought those things in with big government is hilarious to me. He doesn't know what it even is.
No, I don't think he does. I mean, I think, and other people kind of said this, like anyone to his left is a communist or a socialist to him. So that's most people. Like that's literally most people in the world. Like most people in the world are to that guy's left. He is like a fringe, anywhere outside of the United States, he wouldn't even be on the spectrum of political ideology.
We don't like him. We don't like him. He's just so rich that he's able to keep buying seats. Like nobody likes him. I have yet to meet one person who likes him. Not one.
And that's the big difference between Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis is a lot of people like Ron DeSantis,
which is frightening.
Yeah, which is
very frightening.
It's a lot has changed in the last 6 months. Let's keep it 100% on that one. But in terms of just overall, political decision making, I mean, Rick Scott is as bad as anybody I've ever seen. He's the richest person in the Senate, and the overwhelming majority of the money he's made was due to Medicare fraud. So he literally made his money through the blood of other people. And to say that he's a soulless prick would be the nicest way to describe him. And unfortunately, he's going to be reelected very comfortably next year because the Democratic Party in Florida is a complete disaster. We've already covered this, but the keynote speaker on Saturday at the Democratic Blue Gala, which of course was held at Fontainebleau in Miami, why the hell wouldn't you do it at a place in the state where they could really use the extra money? It's not like Miami Beach needs more money. There are plenty of places where they could have chosen to do this and had more of a, we're redoing the Democratic Party. We're getting back to our roots type of thing. And so their guest speaker was actor Bradley Whitford. And Bradley Whitford, who really likes to put himself out there as, a Deborah Messing type, Democratic Party sycophant liberal, decided that just before he came down to Florida, he was going to put out a tweet about how much he hates progressives and how the hell they didn't just get in line for Hillary Clinton in 2016 and all would be fine if it wasn't for that. So I'm thinking, if you really want to know why Rick Scott keeps winning elections and he's so effing terrible, well, you have to have some semblance of competition on the other side. And if there was any type of infrastructure, solid candidates, things like that, I think he probably would have been knocked out a number of years ago. Stands to reason now why he's going to win again next year and is able to get away with the absolute vomit that comes out of his mouth constantly. I think only because of Ron DeSantis have we not heard as much from Rick Scott over the last few years. Either way, you're screwed. But I'm glad I don't hear as much from him. But when he talks, and honestly, it's like listening to Debbie talk. It's that bad.
Wow. Yeah, that's I wasn't familiar with that tweet or that meeting, but they're still spinning the old Hillary record, huh? They're still freaking 7 years later. They're still spinning that easily debunkable nonsense. And they're already starting on 2024, which wow, it's going to be a long season. It's going to be a long freaking season. It's already started, which is ridiculous.
Before we hop into that, I just want to give everybody kind of an overview highlight of this article regarding police and gender. Florida is not alone in focusing surveillance efforts, that's amazing, on trans people. In Missouri, a Kansas City hospital sued the state's attorney general this April rather than comply with 54 requests for patient health data about gender-affirming care procedures. Last year in Texas, Attorney General Ken Paxton, boy, is he a real winner. Ken Paxton is, no, I'm thinking of the lieutenant governor who said that you should die for capitalism when it was COVID, requests that the Texas Department of Public Safety provide a list of every person who has changed their gender on a Texas driver's license during the previous 2 years. The office ultimately complied a list of over 16,000 Texans, and it was not provided to the Office of the Attorney General because of accuracy concerns. But according to privacy and data privacy and trans rights activists, surveillance of trans people could extend far beyond requests. So it's pretty much telling you the direction that they want to take this issue in. You know, they are really hell-bent on trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. And look, I think that there is something to be said for one's opinion about how much, say is there for parents regarding their children. I don't have any issue.
No, parents do not feel that way in Florida. I'm a parent in Florida, and no, we do not feel that way. I find it infuriating.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.